Hey there, Synth Drones. Today, or actually tonight, we're going to be talking about synthesizers and the return of vinyl records. You know what I'm talking about. Hi, I'm Pure Ambient Drone, and this is my channel where I vlog about synthesizers. If you haven't already done so, hit the subscribe button, tap that bell so you can keep up with all of my synth adventures. So, the return of vinyl, and what does that mean for synthesizer guys and gals like us? If we are releasing music, should we get into the vinyl world of releasing albums? Well, you know, I personally think this is a fad. I don't think it's going to stay. I swore off records when CDs came back, and I will admit that records have a character about them, a warmth about them, that CDs lack big time, okay? And it's to be natural. I mean, when things are created in the digital world, they're going to lack that analog feel. But there are some good things about CD and even MP3 and other digital formats that far outweigh, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, of records. So I swore off records and I said, man, you know what? I'm not going to invest in a record player and blah, blah, blah. This was years ago. And then records started making a comeback, and I thought, you know, maybe I should dust off some of the old records, okay? And I came across a record player for free, okay? So I go ahead and I hook it up, and I'm playing records. And I forgot how you had to flip a record over to get to the other side. Not that I forgot, but it was just like, okay, I got to stop what I'm doing, flip the record, because I got spoiled in the digital world, right? And so I'm flipping this record, and I'm hearing the scratching and the clicking and the hissing. And, you know, the record player that I have doesn't have very great speakers. It doesn't hook to a computer or anything like that. It's kind of old school stuff. And, you know, I'm just looking at this and I'm thinking, you know, it sounds very nostalgic, you know. It reminds me of when I was a kid and stuff and played records in my room. So I go to the thrift stores and I start picking up some records there, you know, used. And I find that because record players and records in general are making a comeback, that records are going up. They used to be like, you couldn't give these things away at the thrift stores, antique stores, and the like. And now they're like between $6, which I bet that's cheap in some places who are, you know, maybe you're in a place where you're watching this video and records are a lot more, all the way to $20 to $30 for used records, all right? And this is used records. This isn't even getting into the new stuff. And so I find a couple of records in my genre of music, electronica, and I'm listening to them on my record player, and you know, it's just a different experience, right? But then, you know, side A is over with, or side one. You gotta flip it to side 2 or side B, whichever be the case, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not lazy or anything. Then you gotta take the record out of its sleeve, and some of them come with little plastic covers or paper, and then you got to put them back in, and then you got to put the records someplace because they're kind of large, and you got to store them someplace. And I'm looking at this, and then the next time, you know, I do this for a few days, and then the next time I look around and I look at my record player, I look at my stack of records, because I still have records from the old days, and I'm thinking about playing one of them, and I'm like, you know, I kind of lazy, and I don't want to grab the record and stick it on the, you know, turntable and spin it and mess with the needle and all of that stuff. And I end up not using it as much as I thought I was going to, you know. And I go over to my computer, which is in the same room where my record player is, and I pump up the MP3. So that's what I do. And I end up listening to digital again. So anyway, what does this all mean for, you know, synth drones who are releasing music? You know, I looked into doing a release on vinyl, and I didn't look very hard. I'll admit that, okay? Because what I found initially was it's quite expensive, and I don't really have a method of distribution for physical music releases for myself. You know what I mean? Well, actually all of my money comes from online sales. So I have to weigh the cost of having to inventory these large formats of vinyl and then ship them out. If I'm going to do my own distributing, okay, if I'm going to handle it myself, I'm going to have to handle inventory, shipping, packaging, blah blah blah. And man, I don't even want to do that with physical CDs, let alone something that is much larger and far more fragile to ship. So I'm going to forego the vinyl, okay, like I have with CDs. And here's the thing, I see amateur, musicians that are, into synth music and any kind of music, talking about, well, I'm going to release a vinyl, I'm going to release a real record, an album on record. And I'm thinking, have they checked into how much that could cost them in general? And I don't even know if you can find someone that would distribute it out. Maybe one of the music companies out there like CD Baby, maybe they can handle something like that for distribution purposes. I don't know. I haven't checked into that, because when I found out the prices that's required for just getting the record pressed, I mean, it can get expensive. So, and I just don't have a way to distribute it. So I just kind of gave up on the idea, because I wasn't really keen on it to begin with anyway. I just kind of toyed with it. The other thing is, I do think it is a fad, and it may or may not be. I could be wrong, okay? Wouldn't be the first time I was wrong, right? You guys don't need to answer that. But the point is that, when I was a kid and the digital format came, I was like, yeah, that's really cool. This is much easier. I remember the days of tape, which there's now rumors that, tapes are going to come back and stuff, cassette tapes. And I remember, playing a tape in the car. Heck, I remember 8-track, okay? But I remember playing a tape in the car, and then you had to fast forward it because you don't like the next song. You had to flip the tape over, and you had to skip through it by fast forward. And I always kept it playing, just let the tape play, and then hit the fast forward button, and you'd be hearing that noise, and then you would also hear the dreaded noise of your tape being 8 sometimes. And if it happened in the car where you just slide the tape in, instead of the conventional home players, you'd have to slide the tape in, like maybe lay it on its side, slide it through. It would tangle up in there, and then you'd be in there with tweezers and the flashlight, holding the flashlight in your mouth, holding the little tape trap door on the deck with one hand, and tweezing out the tape with another. And man, what a mess, right? So I kind of hope cassettes don't come back. But I think it's a fad, and I think that especially for the younger generation today, they were raised on digital distribution. And I talk to some of the young folks these days, and they don't want to hassle with this stuff. We didn't want to have to hassle with it. That's why we jumped into CDs. And I remember when CDs were coming about, you could walk into a retail store and see a whole bunch of CDs out there that were like $10 to $15 a CD, and they were taking old releases and remastering them into the digital world and re-releasing them out on CD. And then I was a big AC/DC fan when I was a kid, and I don't mind them now either. I mean, they're pretty cool, is what I mean by that. And I remember getting some of my AC/DC tracks and on CD, and it didn't sound the same on CD as it did on a tape. It just, and I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I was used to tape, right? I mean, I grew up on records and tapes, so that definitely played into the psyche of why it didn't sound the same. But it did, to me, sound like there was a bit of, I don't know, personal character gone from the music. And I don't think it was subliminal, because nobody had talked about digital coldness back when it first started coming out. In fact, it was just the opposite. The people who were pushing CDs were bragging about how clear the sound would be. And they were right. It was very, very clear. So it was all cool. and I enjoyed being able to skip tracks and move around. Then MP3s came out, and that's a compressed format, and so people were starting to complain that they were losing some of even more sound than they had been before because of MP3s, depending on the bit rate and all of that. So where I'm going with all of this is that I'm going to continue in the digital world, because ultimately that's what's going to win out, in my opinion, in the long run. I don't see records making a permanent comeback. When you go into a retail store, and I just left the retail store, I don't see the swarms of people hovering around the CD section or even the record section that I did when I was a kid. And that's because there was no online ability to buy when I was a kid. And nowadays, when I shop online, I like to get MP3s because it's instant gratification. So I get on there and I see an album that I want, and bam, I buy it, and it's about the same price as a physical CD, give or take. And I have it right there on my computer, where I spend most of my listening time anyway. When I'm doing something outside of synthesizing, I listen to music in the background. And so that's what I do. I play it on my computer. But anyway, just some thoughts about, releasing your music and just doing your thing, and how you want to release your music in this digital world that wants to go back to analog. I'm Pure Ambient Drone. If you haven't already done so, hit your subscribe button, hit that subscribe button, tap that bell, and until next time, keep calm and synth on.